Hey everybody, it is Alexandra Hare with Optimum Joy, and I have Sarah Heinss here for one of our COVID Zoom get to know her interviews in place of some of our fancy, beautiful videos that we have on our bio pages and that will be coming back to our bio pages when we're back in a place where we can film those. But Sarah is one of our counselors, and if I could encapsulate the populations that you really like to work with, Sarah, not that you don't work with anybody else, because therapists are trained as generalists, but these are some specific populations that really kind of resonate with you. It would be that career development piece, along with maybe even people who are feeling stuck and are not sure how to move forward on their life goals, as well as with you being from the arts and creative background, those who are in like a vocational or hobby artist, and just like that identity work and that self-esteem and the value that comes with creating art, consumable art for people, for yourself and for others. And then lastly, just your experience and your kind of desire to work with people who have disordered eating and how that really kind of interacts with the internal and external world. Would you say that kind of encapsulates some of what you do as a counselor?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I think the only thing I would add to that would be also people who are feeling relationally stuck. So I work a lot with relationships, romantic relationships, family of origin, stuff like that.
I'm so glad you said that. So we're just going to kind of run through a few questions again, just so people can kind of get to know you a little bit. And I would love just to start with what even first interested you in the field of counseling.
Yeah. So I think what really got me started into it is my interest in people's stories. So I'm a filmmaker and I love telling stories. But counseling is even better because stories aren't just on the screen, they're real and they're deeply personal. So a lot of times when people come into therapy, they're in what screenwriters call the dark night of the soul moment. So it's right at the end of Act 2 when the main character hits rock bottom and is stuck with this sort of overwhelming sense of hopelessness. And they're mourning the loss of what has died. So that can be a dream, a goal, the love of their life, etc. Um, so what people can't often see when they're in the dark night of the soul is that there's an act 3. So there's a finale just over the horizon where after the hero has experienced the upside down of their world, there is this turning over of the old world for the new created order. So a lot of times at the end of the first few sessions with someone, I'm asking the question, what is their story? Like, what's the story that God is calling them into, um, and how am I going to get to be a part of that unique journey?
I love that because even I think that there's so many moments on like the big screen that they're telling a story, but you miss like the gritty pieces of
Yeah,
how people actually come to like develop or like move into, the act 3. It's like we are all just like, oh yeah, we want to be like the act 3 person, the hero, all this different stuff, but you actually have to go through, the first parts of it. And that's why I think the whole story as a whole is so important in people's lives. So that makes so much sense to me. Um, yeah. What about even just what's maybe like a favorite thing about being a therapist, would you say?
yeah, that's a good question. Um, well, there's so many things that I love about it, but I think that something that really hits the core of me is that counseling has this very sacred quality to it. So I get to come alongside people in some of their darkest moments. They're most lonely, they're most scared, they're most depressed. And I get to offer them a tangible piece of hope so that the way that things are right now in their life is not the way that they're always going to be. And I love getting to be a part of that.
It's really important work. I know you and I and a lot of people in our office kind of our minds are blown on a weekly basis, the fact that we get to do the work that we do. So it's a cool, I would say cool is a probably not a good, it's a really great space to hold in people's lives. So
Yeah.
when you're not in the office, when you don't have your therapist hat on, when you're not meeting with people on like a telehealth appointment, how do you spend your time?
How do I spend my time? Well, what'd you say?
How do you not spend your time is maybe a better question because I know.
I know. That's true. There's so much going on. So I'm a big reader, so I love to read. Back before COVID, I love going out to dinner with friends. I also, since I'm a filmmaker, photographer, visual arts, I do a lot of stuff of that, both on the side and also vocationally. So it's a big part of my life still. And I've recently gotten into cooking because who hasn't recently? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's too true. I feel like I got more into cooking and then I kind of got out of cooking. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I like to cut up an apple and throw some peanut butter on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know you're not from, I personally know that you're not from Chicago, but for just the people who are watching this, where did you grow up? How did you come to be this person in Chicago?
Yeah. So I actually grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. So I grew up in the South. My parents are both from the South, and some might call me a Southern lady. But since I spent most of my 20s actually in LA, so I feel in my heart, I feel more like a West Coast gal at this point. So yeah, so I've spent most of my time both in the South and in LA, which has brought me to Chicago, where I went to school and am now a therapist.
Yeah. You got some of that California girl roots that that's
Yes.
good roots.
Yes. I don't have the blonde hair like you, but
Blonder for sure, but yeah, California is a good place. My mom is actually from California, but
oh wow.
we can talk about that later actually. So, if I or somebody else who really knows you were to introduce you to somebody, what would they say? How would they introduce you?
Alex, that is such a hard question. um maybe this is Sarah. She's just as weird as you. No, I'm just kidding. I think I would want you to say, this is Sarah. She is not afraid of messy people with messy lives who are just holding on to hope with barely a thread. Um, yeah,
That's
yeah.
I see both of those things as being true. You are a little weird, and you can hold out for messy people. So,
Yes, thank you. That's how I want to be introduced.
oh,
Sarah's weird, just like you, and also she's comfortable with your weirdness, whatever flavor that takes.
exactly. So, if we kind of switch a little bit back to thinking about counseling, we're thinking about people who maybe even are just like considering coming to counseling, but they haven't actually done it. They haven't actually called a therapist or researched them on the internet or asked people for recommendations. They're just in like kind of the initial stages before actually coming. What would you want to say to those people who are considering seeking counseling?
Well, it can be really nerve-wracking, especially if you haven't ever been to a therapist before. There's just a lot of unknowns. You've seen a lot of what it looks like to go to therapy in movies and on shows, and you've heard about it maybe from other people, or heard of someone talk about someone who is going to therapy in a certain way. Um, so I would say that if you get to a place where you're considering it, go, because it probably means that you've been there for a while. And I would just say, just take the next step. You don't have to know how long you're going to go or if it's a perfect fit with your therapist, or you don't need to know all those things right up at the start. You just need to take the next step.
Yeah. And that your therapist can really help you decide what some of those next steps are.
Yeah.
Even if it is, oh, I'm not the best therapist for you, or this is how frequently we're going to meet, or this is what we're going to work on. That's really kind of a co created space. So you're right. If someone can just get to a moment where they take the next step, they're going to get more information to make the decisions about what's best for them. It-
Yeah, absolutely.
and kind of in a similar vein as for people who are thinking about seeking out counseling, just even a more general question is like, what would you, again, just generally want people to know about counseling?
Mm. I I think I would want people to know that counseling is not a quick fix as much as we would like it to be. I think a lot of times we come in and we're in such a place that we want whatever we're going through to be solved right away. We want the relationship to work out. We want to know what we're doing with our lives. We want to um have that anxiety go away in a snap. And I would like that as well for everybody. But if it was that easy, then we would have figured it out by now. So I think that counseling, what I would want people to know is that it is a place where deep, rich, holistic healing can happen if you're ready to put in the work. Um, but it's that work piece, and the fact that it is so deep and so rich is what makes it not be a snap of a finger. So it's part of a process.
Yeah, no, that's very beautifully said. You know, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question.
Oh no.
No, you poor thing. Fellow Enneagram enthusiast, you and
Yes.
I, as an Enneagram social eight, would you share with us your Enneagram type here at the end of the video?
Really? Should I?
You don't have to, but you are actually a fellow Enneagram enthusiast. It's something that I really, you and I can kind of go deep into the dark spaces of the Enneagram. So it's just something
Yeah.
I enjoy about you, and we get to kind of nerd out on that together. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Sarah, I am so proud and happy to have you in our Optimum Joy team and family. I really appreciate you just taking a few minutes to let people peek into your life a little bit, just to kind of, again, get to know a little bit the person who you are, um, so that like you and somebody else could focus on them and do good work in the counseling room. So I just
Yeah.
appreciate that, and we're so glad to have you on our team.
Wow. Well, thanks so much, Alex. I'm happy to be here. This was fun and
Yep,
painless.
mostly painless. So, all
Good.
right, Sarah, well, have a good day. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.